Welcome back to the 2017 Canadian Outdoor Single Championships. I'm Jake Shuknik, joined again by Bob Strong. How are you doing today, Bob?
Great, thanks.
Feature match today, we have Ernie Meid from Saskatchewan against Malcolm Taylor from British Columbia. And this is Malcolm Taylor Sr., I guess, although I'm told that he's actually not first of his name, as his father had the same name as well, as does his son, so I might call him Malcolm Taylor II.
I think they call the son Melky.
They call him Malky, yeah, just to distinguish between the two. He played in it, I'm not sure if it was last year or 2 years ago, but I saw him today. He was operating the camera for us this morning. Both of these players are identical records of 2 and 4, as this is the last round for them. They both happen to have a -3 on the plus-minus scale, which is interesting that they have a same plus-minus as well.
But no matter the result, they can't qualify
right
for the playdowns.
That's right. Playing for pride here. Speak of the devil, there he is walking around behind us here now. So Ernie's rocking a Broad Beach Bulls shirt while Malcolm Taylor has a BC jersey.
Yeah, Malcolm trailed the jack. Oh, he may have got a very fortuitous carom there. He could be sitting a couple, maybe even 3, behind the jack.
Yeah, tough to tell. Ernie's chasing this one down with his last bowl, and he's coming up well narrow, as we've seen time and time again on this rink. That swoopy hand tends to confound people sometimes.
Well, it can certainly get away from you.
Yep. Yeah, if you don't get out there, it'll be quick to let you know. Malcolm's coming up well short on that, just staying away from it altogether. And yeah, 3.
Yeah, Malcolm's wife Marie actually gave Mary Wright a bit of a scare. Yesterday, Marie won the first set, but Mary came back and won the second set and the tiebreaker, so.
Yeah, funnily enough, we streamed Marie Taylor the first round here earlier today, so Marie for round 1 and Malcolm for round 2.
Mm-hmm.
Any early guesses for how this game's going to go?
I'm predicting it's going to be a very close match. I think either of them are capable of bowling well enough to beat the other, and they've probably played each other a whole bunch of times. And as long as they're both on their game, there's not much to choose between them.
Mm-hmm. I've played against Ernie several times throughout my life, as he used to come down to Woba in Ontario.
Yes.
That would have been, I think, maybe 10 years ago, the first time I met him. Fantastic bowler. And then 2 years ago, I played against Malcolm for the first time, as he was competing in this event 2 years ago, and I think I played him in the quarterfinals and just squeaked by, but absolute beauty to play against.
Ernie's a little bit ambitious on both of his shots.
Well, you can see that Malcolm Taylor has the mat up a fair pace there, so that might be throwing Ernie off.
Not the tightest head you'd expect, but I guess it's a green that's hard to read initially.
Yeah, early on it can really trick you when one hand is very swoopy and the other hand is kind of straight-ish. It's really not that straight, but it's just there's a point of no return, so it's not quite as much of a draw as the other hand.
Looks like Malcolm is still lying one.
Yeah, could be. Switching on to the stitch side though. Definitely wasn't afraid of it with that one as he just drew the ditch.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, Ernie was asking what the count is, and it is in fact 1 for Malcolm so far.
Certainly was a marvelous game between Jordan Koss and Mary Wright this morning.
Mm-hmm. That was a rematch of last year's final, and that went down to a tiebreak, and very tight battle between those two. And Ernie was a little quick on that again, so this will be 1 for Malcolm to make it 4-0 after 2.
Mm-hmm. It's a jackrabbit start, but it's not a race to the finish. It's we saw some games yesterday where somebody leapt out into the lead and just couldn't hold that lead.
Growing up, when I played singles, I used to always get behind early and then come storming back after, and I found that that really played to my advantage, because when you're in the lead and you're watching it disappear, you start to get a little nervous and things start to play with your mind. But when you're storming from behind, you've got nothing to lose. You're just
That's
looking
right.
to claw your way back. Now that I'm a little older, I definitely would not recommend getting down early. That's
No.
not a good strategy by any means,
No.
but it seemed to work for me back in the day. Beautiful opening bowl there from Malcolm. Next door, Glenn Taylor took the first point off Pat Bird there in the first end to make it 1-0. Pat's undefeated so far, I believe, and I think Glenn's also through to the next rounds as well.
There must be some very tricky runs, because I've seen bowlers end up 6 or 8 feet wide.
Mm-hmm.
And whether it was from throwing that wide or whether they threw a bowl that crossed that much, there have to be some very tricky runs. But I think universally the bowlers have been very complimentary of the green conditions.
Mm-hmm. You can get a real bird's eye view here as Malcolm's starting out nice and wide and then zooming in as the bowl gets closer to the head, so you can see almost every other rink there. It's a nice, almost aerial shot.
Mm-hmm. We have some key matchups today. Over on 3, Robbie Law is playing Bob Van Wellingham.
Mm-hmm.
The winner advances, the loser does not.
Yeah, that is a very key game for both those guys. Pressure is on. It's almost like they're just starting the playoffs early in that game, really.
And interestingly, they played together.
Yeah, that's right.
In Victoria.
That's right. They're on the same triples team.
Mm-hmm.
And funnily enough, John Bjornsson is also in their pool as well. So all 3 of them are in the same pool. That whole triples team. So Ernie's just coming up a shade wide there, so I think this will be at least 1 here for Malcolm again.
And so it would appear. Interesting observation. Manitoba has a father-son duo playing.
Mm-hmm.
Both Kevin and Leo Dusemblon have qualified for the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
It's not surprising for Leo because he's performed very well over the years, but for Kevin, that's quite an achievement.
There's also a family affair from Saskatchewan as well, as the Cosses. Jordan and her mother Lois are both here competing, although I'm not sure how they're doing in the standings. But the Watsons are also here as well.
Okay.
As Brandon and Carter, and then their mother Janet.
And Malcolm and his wife,
Mm-hmm.
Marie.
That's right. That's right. Bulls tends to be a family affair. So Ernie's trying to find the line on the straighter hand, and I think he's just drawn the ditch. Malcolm was quick on the mat. Before that bull even finished, he was off to the races. Maybe a little
I
too
think
quick.
he's found the ditch.
Yeah, a little too quick.
The marker on this rink happens to be Robbie's grandmother.
Oh, okay. All right. Did not know that. And Ernie may have just drawn shot there.
Mm-hmm.
Malcolm's just coming around across behind. We saw this earlier this morning. Once you cross that center line, it comes almost at a 90-degree angle back towards this side ditch. It really takes off on you once you cross over. Ernie just chipped over Malcolm's bull there. That might have made a difference. Asking the marker to take a look, and very close. She's favoring Malcolm, so that means Ernie might have just given the shot away.
Certainly doesn't look like it from this angle, but angles are terribly deceiving.
Mm-hmm. It really does make a difference how you look at it, where you're standing from. Or in our case, sitting.
Ernie has nothing more than a cold draw,
And
I think he's come up light.
a little bit short there. Had a great line, though. Finally figured out that line.
Right.
So if the marker is right, then that'll be another one for Malcolm to make it 6-0 after 4, which is a pretty good start to the set.
Yes.
So I've had a lot of players ask me what's going to happen with the playoffs, as you have to win 50% or more to make it through to the knockout round. So the way it works is they need to get down to 16 or 8, 4 or 2, something really nice for quarterfinals and whatnot. So depending on how many people make it through, if there's 17 or more, then they'll have preliminary knockout round between 17 and 16 to make it down to 16. But we don't know how many players there are yet. There are a few people that we're still waiting on that are 3-3 right now. As you mentioned earlier, Rob Law and Bob Van Wellingham are both 3-3. The winner moves on, the loser does not. And in John Siteman's game against Gary Pickering, John is also 3-3, so he needs to win that game to advance, or if Gary wins, then John will not. And I believe there's also another game where someone is 3-3, but I can't remember who it is or what rink it was on. But after this round, we'll start to have an idea for what the playoffs will look like.
It's an interesting situation where it's not not cut and dried who makes it through.
Hmm.
A lot of times only the top two in a group, for example, will make it through. But because, well, in the men's, no, I guess even in the men's, it isn't a matter of two people making it through, because there could be ties for points, and I guess within the group they could possibly have gone to the top players in each group.
I guess in theory they probably could have, but it's hard to do that when you don't know how many people are going to enter.
True.
Beforehand. You don't know how many groups are going to be. As is the case with the women, with 11 women, they're all just in one big group right now and play 7 random people.
Well, you see the finish on that. That front bowl may have taken away the line on the backhand to the jack. Ernie certainly tried and sailed very wide. Pardon me, crossed the jack.
Mm-hmm. Ernie's chasing this down. I don't know if that's enough. Maybe.
No, I think the back bowl is the bowl at 1 o'clock is shot bowl.
I was watching Malcolm's delivery there. He holds his thumb really high up on the bowl there. It's not on the grip or anything. It's almost right on the back middle of the bowl. I'd find that very hard to control, but I guess it's working for him.
Looks like probably 2 for Malcolm right now.
Ernie has 1 left to come, so I'm sure he'll be looking to change that.
But his 3 bowls are all short of the jack.
Mm-hmm.
So he can't really add to the count. The best he can hope for is to outcount Malcolm's 2 first and second shot.
Mm-hmm. I think Ernie's playing with some weight on this. Looking for the jack, and he just
missed it by that much.
Well, nothing ventured, nothing gained.
I think this has gotten away from Ernie.
Yeah, he's definitely going to need to fill up his socks to try to get back into this game, as it's now 7-0. Although they've only played 5 ends, so there's still 4 to go.
Sure.
If he can get to an end, he still wins the set.
It's not a start one would choose.
No, that's for sure. That's for sure. Unless you're Malcolm, in which case...
Yeah, that's right.
Then I would definitely choose that.
Did you see the circus shot to end the last match on the artificial yesterday?
No, I did not.
Mm.
No, I did not.
The young fellow in blue, and I don't know who he is.
John Seitman.
Yeah, John Seitman trailed Kitty to the ditch in an almost impossible situation to win the match.
I saw him make a post on it on Facebook about it, saying that he made a heck of a shot to win the game, which was a must-win for him.
Yeah. It looked like it was out of reach for him, and I turned away for a second and everybody roared. So he made the shot he was looking to make.
Malcolm's looking to disrupt Ernie's bowl and just got the wrong side of it to push him directly behind the jack. That's going to be a little more difficult now for for Malcolm to try to get off. And Ernie's opting to go with this ditchy inside. The way he struggled last end on the swoop hand, I wouldn't be surprised if he starts to stick to this straighter side. It is a relatively fine line, though.
I don't know whether they made a conscious effort to have people play an equal number of games or relatively equal on this surface versus the artificial, but certainly the games that I've watched here right today, I'm seeing bowlers that I hadn't seen earlier in the week, so they may have played more matches on Dakota than they did on this surface.
Well, I know I worked with the scheduler who made that, and big thanks to Dave Cox for putting that together. It took a long time, but no, he definitely did make a conscious effort to try to make it so everybody had the same amount of games on this as on Dakota, and just how things worked out, I think everybody in 3 of the pools played 2 games on the artificial, and 1 of the pools they only play 1. So for the most part, it's relatively even.
Sure.
And he also looked at outside rinks versus inside rinks to try to make sure nobody's playing all of their games on an outer rink or an inner rink. So tried to make it as even as possible, and it took quite a while to crunch all those numbers to make sure that you didn't have anybody playing 7 games in a row on an outside rink or what have you. So
well, I think Ernie's probably made 3.
that's a pretty good.
That's the start of the road back.
That is a pretty good start.
Well, I've been a scheduler in other sports, and I know it's really delicate. I used to do all the scheduling for a large football league, and it's even more difficult there because you have to have an equal number of home and away games,
Mm-hmm.
and to try to stagger everything like that, it's delicate.
I've always wondered how they do it in the pro leagues between basketball, hockey, and everything else, because a lot of the times they use the same stadium. So that means you have to worry about different leagues coming in as well. And I feel like that could be a really messy affair.
Well, there are actually scheduling programs, and where you can enter the parameters. If you can say, okay, here's all of the teams, this number of teams, this number of games, they have to play home and away, and these dates are not available in these cities. And there's actually programs that'll lay that out for you. So it's probably brighter minds than mine that put that together.
You and me both. That's definitely not something I'd be doing.
Well, that was quite a comeback effort for Ernie.
Yeah, got him right back into the set here as they're playing end number 7. And it's just a 4-point game now.
Looks from here like Malcolm Drew shot bull, but it's deceptive because of the angle again.
Mm-hmm.
He's got the wing bull. Oh, that's going to stay out. No, it won't. Look at that.
Look at that come back in. That's
Yeah.
so that straight hand really is not that straight. It's only straight relative to the other hand.
Sure. Well, that's a pretty fine shot.
Can't complain too much with that.
Malcolm just tapped Ernie's shot bull away.
So you know Ernie probably a little better than I do, but we did get him to fill out a sheet for us, and he's from Regina, Saskatchewan, and is a retired school teacher. So that was his.
Actually, I think he's from Moose Jaw. He's moved to Regina,
okay.
but he bowled for years out of Moose Jaw.
I did not know that. he has been bowling for 25 years, so he's got years of experience. And he's using Classic 2, the Henselite model. Favorite vacation spots, Gold Coast, Australia, which does not surprise me. That's a small paradise. Claim to fame, he won the mixed pairs gold in 2001, and he's got a 4 silver with 2 bronzes. He also played the NAC triples in 2002. I did not know that.
Yeah, Ernie's been highly competitive for a lot of years. Like I said, he's overcome some physical impairments to do it, so it really is quite admirable.
Probably one of the friendliest guys you'll ever meet, but also the biggest Rough Riders fan I think that there is out there. He's always wearing green and supporting the troops. I'm surprised he's not wearing more green here, as he's just got the green hat on right now, but definitely bleeds green.
Well, being out of the playoffs, he apologized that he'll be cheering on the Rough Riders tomorrow afternoon instead of watching the finals here.
It's the Banjo Bowl or something they
The
call it.
Banjo Bowl, that's right.
I think it was Robbie's mom was telling me the story about that, about how when those two teams played back in the day, someone was, I don't know if they brought a banjo or something, and they started getting mocked, so then everybody brought a banjo to the next
Actually,
game.
the story behind that is that Troy Westwood, the kicker for BC, for Winnipeg, trying to rile Saskatchewan, called them a bunch of banjo-picking inbreds.
Ah.
And that's how the game became the Banjo Bowl.
A little bit of CFL history for you there.
Not politically correct, but there's never been any love lost between Saskatchewan and BC on the football pitch, and for the last 10 years or more, Saskatchewan has gotten the better of Winnipeg far more often than not.
Ernie's just crashing onto Malcolm's bowl there. So with 2 ends to go, 5-point game. If Malcolm counts here, that solidifies the first set 1.
Right.
If Ernie can count, then he'll need to score 4. Depending on how many counts here, I guess. Beautiful bowl there from Malcolm. And that is shot itself. Ernie's just coming up a little bit short there. That might have been relatively close draw weight had he not.
Yeah, I think he was also tight on his line. If he'd had the right line, he probably did have the right weight. And Malcolm's going to draw beyond the count.
Always good to have that insurance bowl.
Looks like he pulled the string again a little bit.
He's got a nice little pocket up there if he could ever find a rebounding jack. I think I've seen more jack measures here than I've seen in any other event I've been to. And Malcolm is just piling them in. Line 3 right now.
Doesn't look to be a very easy way for Ernie to score more than one if he can get one. He's drawn across.
So So that'll be 3 for Malcolm and the set. Next door, Glenn Taylor's got the upper hand there, 6-2 over Pat Bird after 5.
I thought Pat was sitting at the top of his group, but
He is, yeah. He hasn't lost a game.
yeah.
And the rink beside them. Sorry, go ahead.
At this stage of the tournament, I'm not sure why they need to play the 9th end, but like they can't be playing points for and against or anything, and but that's the way it's set for all of the games. So
yeah, that's true. For these guys, I guess technically shots for and against really don't make a whole lot of a difference, but it is the final round for these guys, so let them get as much bowling done as they can.
Sure.
Gary O'Connell up 9-2 over Carter Watson at the moment. Gary Pickering's up 11-1 over John Siteman. Terry O'Neill is up 7-4 over John McDonald. Looks like Rob Law's down 4-3 to Bob Van Wellingham. Everett Dwyer's up 5-4 over John Bjornson. And down at the end, Michael Leong is up 4-2 over Brandon Watson.
You've got all those initials down for the competitors.
Well, there's a few faces that I don't recognize or a few names I'm not too familiar with, but after doing this for a week, I'm starting to catch on.
Sure.
The only downside is when there's similar initials playing. Bo Koss and Brian Cullman being 2 culprits.
Sure. I did a double take on the women's side when they showed E. Jones, and when I see E. Jones, it's generally Elaine, and in this instance, it clearly is not.
No, she's umpiring here. She's not coming in as a player just yet. Sure, Malcolm wishes he could have that one back, as he cut the line on that pretty hard. Ernie's wishing that would finish a lot harder than it is. I think Malcolm was suggesting on his way back down he's got a little bit of a pain in his just above his hip. That could prove problematic.
He'll probably climb in the hot tub tonight and get rid of the back pain.
So that was one for Mr. Taylor to finish off that set 12-3. As we'll move on to set number 2 here now. And I will say these guys are just flying along at a fast pace.
Well, as you commented earlier, Malcolm's on the mat and ready to roll when Ernie's bull comes to rest.
Certainly makes the game go by a whole lot faster when you do it that way. And unfortunately there, Malcolm just threw the jack into the ditch.
And they haven't got situations in the head where they need to come down and examine things and check their options and things. Everything's been fairly cut and dried.
That's true, and that also is one way to take a lot more time when you have to come down and check out the head or measure. coming up about a yard short there on his first with a pretty good line though. Ernie cut the line on this and just crashed into Malcolm's first to make it that much closer.
One more tap and he'll have him exactly where he wants him.
Malcolm got out. Well, I think he actually just added some weight. I don't think he changed his line a whole lot at all, really.
The position of Malcolm's last bull certainly favors him, because if Ernie should happen to make contact with the jack, it would be moving towards Malcolm.
Mm-hmm. And Malcolm's getting the
I think
further back bull.
Yeah, Malcolm's playing a defensive bull back there, I suspect.
And it looks like Ernie finally got out wide enough, and it's coming all the way back, but not quite in time. Just a little behind. Malcolm's asking how far behind it is. It's about a foot and a half. He's the chair of the High Performance Committee. Just had a fun question. I guess what's Don Caswell's title, as he's here spectating and scouting, I suppose. Showed up on Wednesday, I believe, and he is in fact the chair of the High Performance Committee. So him and the committee deal with all things high performance related, mostly the national squads, development squads, any other kind of squads.
They like to identify talent at all events. They said that the High Performance Committee was in attendance at all events. It looks like Ernie just drew a marvelous inside bowl, yeah?
Well played. Yeah, no, Daryl was with me at the juniors and the majors, and so he's the coach of the youth and development squad, so he was there doing a little bit of scouting work as well. So he saw the juniors and the majors, and then Wayne Wright's also a member of the High Performance Committee, so he was playing at the majors, so he was there, as was Gene Roney. And then Don is here. So they're not quite at every event, but they are at, I wouldn't say the more marquee events, but they're at some of them anyway.
Right. He's not on. Oh, okay.
Ernie's still sticking with that straighter hand. And I think he might have drawn shot there. Beautiful ball there from Malcolm. That's
certainly
number one.
Is. Good response.
Numero uno. Malcolm got out there. I'm not sure if he threw it enough to get there. Trying.
No, he didn't enter the count. Ernie's down 1.
One of the few times that they actually walked down to the head to take a look.
It's interesting how Ernie's first 2 bowls took away his forehand and Malcolm's backhand, and so they were all forced to play from the ditch to the center line.
Yeah, now that you mentioned that, I completely forgot that Ernie was a lefty. Southpaw.
Can be very misleading. Some people try to take their line from a southpaw and they're a right-hander and the line is totally different.
Is it ever? So I believe that'll put Malcolm Taylor back on the board for this set to get him going.
It looks like Malcolm scored 1 to draw even.
1-1 after 2. Malcolm's just kept it on, I think. Yep. So that'll go to the tee.
At the majors, that presented quite a challenge because most of the rinks did have a bit of a slope the last 2 meters. So if the jack was full length, it was very tricky.
A few years back, I was in Florida for a training camp, and one of the drills is to draw within a mat length of the ditch, but it was essentially impossible because it sloped so much by the ditch that you couldn't keep a bowl within the last 4 or 5 feet. So that drill was essentially futile as people were trying taking 7 greens of grass and just aiming sideways and coming up short and pushing a bowl in, and it was incredibly tough drill to do when you can't draw the ditch.
Interesting that Malcolm chose to play almost a full-length jack, and
seems like Ernie might be the one that's going to capitalize on it.
Yeah, Ernie's probably lying a couple right now.
Still plenty of room to draw, though, as neither of those bowls are overly close.
And Malcolm's done the job on this one.
Yes, he did. There it is. Numero uno. next door. Glenn Taylor's given Pat a game there, 7-3 after 7. Ernie just got a little wide there and crashed onto one of Malcolm's.
On 2, John Bjornsson has pulled ahead of his opponent.
Everett Swires there, yeah. John's up 6-5 after 7. Looking to the right, Bob Van Wallingham's up 7-5 over Robbie Law after 8. Terry O'Neill is up 8-5 over John McDonald after 8. Gary Pickering took the first set over John Siteman. And I can't quite see what's going on down on number 1 between Michael Leong. I think Michael Leong is up 6-5 over Brandon Watson. Malcolm said it. He might be holding 3 there right now.
Interestingly, Terry O'Neill started like gangbusters and has run into some tough bowlers.
Ernie was jack hunting there.
Right.
Very quick to decide on what to do here. Is Malcolm saying out comes the tape? Ernie says, yep. Can I take this one out? Yep. Quick to agree, quick to help. So 2 for sure.
Two times.
That'll make it 3-1 for Malcolm after 3 ends of play in the second set.
From this club. Yeah.
Yeah, big thanks to Bob and Malcolm for operating the cameras here for us this game.
Elaine was poking a little bit of fun at Bob Arthur, who's the cameraman at the far end. He dressed to the nines for a game that he was marking, white shirt and tie. So Elaine said she didn't recognize him without his fancy duds on.
So Malcolm threw the jack pretty close to the ditch, and then it got respot, and he threw his first bowl pretty close to the ditch. So if they would have left the jack there, he'd be bang on.
Ernie's bowl doesn't look like it's going to reach. Nope. It looks like they're able to draw the jack from either hand this direction, so there's no huge disadvantage. Although last end, Ernie took away most of Malcolm's backhand, so.
That's right. That's right. And Ernie's sticking with this ditch hand side, and that's a pretty good bowl there.
Boy, you might say that. Although, of course, it looks like it should have stopped not more than a foot from the jack.
I think you're right on that.
It was barely moving when it passed the jack.
Yeah, so Ernie did draw a shot with his last bowl there. I guess the players can't quite see the jack from the mat, as Malcolm was asking, did the jack move? So I guess Malcolm's shorter bowl must be directly in line with it. That's a pretty good bowl there.
Yeah, certainly had draw.
It's probably a measure per
Oh.
shot right now, I think. Yeah, that's what the marker's
That
indicating.
bull must have traveled farther than we thought, the one behind at 11:30. Well, that was the other way of doing it.
Yeah, that's one way to
He,
change things.
you wouldn't think that he could have gone outside that front bull and gone inside the second one. It was a fine line. I think Malcolm is
Yep, just
narrow.
inside. So it looks to me like that's probably going to be at least one for Ernie, maybe even two.
Well, he's got a point, and then they're measuring for second is what the marker had said.
And he's got one left here, so he could easily add another as well.
He could.
Once again, that would get him right back into the set. He seems to be taking my old approach of getting down and then clawing your way back.
Very impressive shirt that Ernie is wearing from the Broad Beach Bulls, which I guess is an Australian club, and
Yeah, it's on the Gold Coast there, home to Ryan Bester.
he did it again, I think.
Well, that might have taken the measure out of it as he just rolled his other bull over a little bit, so I think that might just be two now for Ernie. Malcolm's wasted no time getting down to measure.
Two times to Ernie, I think.
That'll tie things up at 3.
If they each get one more point, they'll be tied.
That's what they say. They're playing end number 5 here, and there are some games out there who haven't even finished the first set.
On rank 7, for example, they're still playing. Well, they're playing the 9th end of the first set.
Yeah. So somehow these guys managed to get 6 ends ahead. Or at least 5 anyway.
On rank 6, Gary O'Connell won the first set.
Mm-hmm.
He was the bowler that joked that he was looking not to embarrass himself in his final game, which wasn't going to count for much.
Yeah, Gary won the first set and is up 1-0 over Carter as they're playing the second end of that second set.
Bob Van Wellingham won the first set against Robbie Law.
Mm-hmm. This looks like a much better bowl here for Malcolm. That's probably number 1.
Yeah. John Bjornsson lost his first set.
Against Everett Swires.
Mm-hmm.
I think Everett's sitting first in that pool and is probably going to finish that way.
I know in tabulating the results, I put an awful lot of W's beside his wire.
He's come a long way, the Ontario native from London. I remember a few years back when he first started. I'm not sure how many years he's been playing now, 5 or 6 I think. But he puts in a lot of time, I'm told. Told that he practices quite a lot. And that's a pretty good effort there from Ernie. Not sure if that's enough for second shot or not, as Malcolm is still holding one for sure.
It's got a nice line here. No, he's going to run up, come up a
Just a bit short.
bit short, I think, yeah.
Jack is just behind that one to the right of Ernie's there. Yeah, there you see it. So Ernie's taken out one, and I think that's all there is, yeah. So it'll give Malcolm a 4-3 lead after 5 ends of play.
Shaping up to be a barn burner.
Well, it's always nice to see good, tight, close games. Makes for a little more entertaining.
Good for the
Of a game.
spectators, not as good for the bowlers necessarily.
Necessarily.
You'd really like to establish and hold a lead.
That being said, I do enjoy playing a tighter game rather than blowing someone out of the water. I don't get a whole lot of enjoyment out of beating the pants off someone. But that's just me. I'm sure some people quite enjoy that.
I'm not looking to embarrass anybody, but I like to
Like to win.
hold a comfortable lead.
Pretty good opening there from Malcolm.
Mhm.
And furthermore, that takes the ditch hand side not quite away from Ernie, but it's going to make him have to play inside it. Which is what Ernie's trying to do, and he's coming up narrow and short.
He dropped that ball.
And I think Malcolm's getting some insurance with this.
Malcolm's covering the back.
Oh, what a ball from Ernest.
Yep, very good ball.
Beauty of a shot. That'll be number 1.
Oh, he's going to move bull or jack, one or the other.
Got the ball without touching the jack at all.
No.
So Ernie wants to know the count, and I believe it's going to be 1 for Malcolm there, I would think. But the marker's having a good look at this, so it might not be. Yeah, it is 1 for
Oh
Malcolm.
my goodness. Ernie is still counting 1?
No, one for Malcolm. She tapped her leg, saying he was down 1.
Oh, sorry, right. I misread the signal.
Ernie's coming up short there, and it's, you know, they always say when you're down, you got to be up.
This is true. Well, that's a pretty fine shot.
That's a beautiful ball there from Malcolm. You know, after all these events are done, you can actually go back on our webpage and still see the final standings and results. So you can go to bowlscanada.com to see where everybody ended up. Oh, Ernie. Ernie. Cheeky.
Did he duck in behind Malcolm?
Yeah, he's just in behind there and he's lying 1. He got shot
Okay.
out of that. Off that tap and come across in. Might have been what he was playing for, but
That was the in-off in curling terms.
yes. I was actually watching a little bit of curling last night. Marla had it on the TV. It's not a sport I've ever really played well, but I quite enjoy watching it now and then. Probably due to its similarity with bowls.
When I'm asked to describe the sport of bowls, I typically say it's curling on grass.
Yep. Yep.
And people who curl understand the sport. Well, all tied up, 4-4. We predicted if they each scored one more, they'd be tied.
You're right. You're right. What's your next prediction as they've started the 7th end here?
Well, my bold prediction would be that one of them will have a bowl closer to the jack than the other.
You might be shooting 100% with your predictions here today.
That's right. I should buy a lottery ticket.
Yeah, yes, you should.
Well, Ernie certainly played an outstanding first bowl.
Has he ever? It's a dandy opener, and Malcolm's just thrown his in the ditch. Ernie has the mat up a little bit.
He crossed over quite a bit, I think, on this one, and he's short.
Oh yeah, that's a mulligan.
Mm-hmm. I expect Ernie to be fairly close on this one.
Not quite.
No,
Blake's
he
not terrible.
certainly got outside.
Did not want to come back. Big thanks to our partners and sponsors, the Government of Canada through Sport Canada, the Coaching Association of Canada, Kukri, our official clothing supplier, and lawnbowlingmanager.com.
Well, that's a fine shot by Malcolm.
Beautiful bowl there from Malcolm.
It can be disheartening, but you can never begrudge your opponent an outstanding shot.
Mm-hmm.
Watch this. Oh!
Just a little bit short. I don't think he got it. Malcolm's going to come down and take a look at this, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
It is, I think, the last bowl of the end here, so he might just not even bother throwing it.
I was rather surprised yesterday when I saw somebody was lying to on a very tight head, and they went down to throw their last bowl. I was like, why would you throw it? And so she deliberately threw it about 3/4 length. She wasn't going to disturb the head. Most people put it in their pocket.
I tend to still always want to throw that last bowl and use it to find out a different part of the green, or even just to practice my draw weight. So I'll draw the back corner. Usually is what I tend to do, is to see what the boundary rink is like, and see if I can draw the ditch.
I can see that too. If you wanted to see a new line, in case the jack is ever moved off center or whatever, you may want to see what that does.
Mm-hmm. So after this round, there'll be, I think there might be one more round that we've got the women playing with the potential preliminary rounds. I don't know if you can hear John Seitman screaming over there. I believe our next match will be a women's match, and then tomorrow we'll be into the medal rounds, quarterfinals, semifinals, and finals. Hard to believe this week's just about done.
I think Ernie's got an outstanding shot here.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful bowl there. So this is end number 8 that they're playing. Getting down to the wire. I think Malcolm's just crashing on a short there. If he would have got by that, he might have had the jack.
Looks like Ernie is lying one.
Yeah, I believe he is. Seems to like this straight hand, though. As he's well around it.
If Malcolm is able to play with even half a yard onto Ernie's shot bowl, though, he's lying 3.
And that would make things incredibly difficult for Ernie.
Certainly would.
I'd have to think that Ernie almost needs to count here to give himself a chance to force a tie break.
Mm-hmm. No, Malcolm has crossed the head.
No, yeah, didn't like that at all.
I don't know whether you have any feelings on this, but at a clinic, actually, one of the clinicians suggested when you pick up your bowl, you always pick it up with your non-bowling hand, thinking that repetitive use of your bowling hand can affect your muscle memory. I never thought much of that. Do you have any thoughts?
That's interesting. I don't know if I've ever heard that before. I know I've heard that it's not ideal to bowl with a different size bowl. I know growing up I used to always just, if I'm playing 4s, use 2 from a set of my teammates rather than using my own.
Mm-hmm.
And that was sort of discouraged because if it's a different size or different weight, then you're not helping your muscle memory at all. But I'm not sure how I feel about that, picking it up with a different hand.
I noticed when Malcolm came up, he picked that up with his left hand and bowls with his right. So he may be an adherent of that theory.
Well, I guess if you bowl enough that over the years, then yeah, you might wear out your arm or your shoulder or one of your body parts if you're playing for 20, 30 years every single day. But I guess my personal opinion is that here in Canada, since for the most part we only end up playing less than 6 months a year, that you give your arm a 6-month break, that I don't think it would really have that much of an impact. But if you end up playing 72 games or 72 days in a row, I was talking to Phil Clark earlier, and he said he met a guy in Australia who'd been playing his 72nd tournament in a row, 72 days straight. Then I guess that might start to have an impact.
You might have a bit of fatigue in a case like that. You're right.
But I guess it probably wouldn't hurt to pick up the bowl with your non-bowling hand and strictly bowl with your bowling hand. I don't think that there would be any negative consequences from that.
You see quite a number of people also use the pickup device.
Mm-hmm.
But in most instances, it seems that that's because of back ailments.
Yes. Yeah.
Rather than trying to conserve energy or strength.
I sometimes use them if I'm playing against someone I know who has one, and I'll just use it for a time or two and make a few jokes that not long before I'll need one. But some people have suggested that I start using it now, and it'll save my back later, as it can be a lot of bending over to pick up bowls. But definitely a neat little device to be able to pick up a bowl without bending over. So this is the last end here. These guys are all tied up, so Ernie needs to count to force the tiebreak, and Malcolm needs to count to secure the win. Ernest is lying 2 right now.
He got just a tiny bit wide on this one. His weight was great.
Yeah, just needed to bring that in about a foot and he'd be shot.
Ernie's going to cross the head with this one.
That might end up being a guideline there for Malcolm. You just have to play inside that there.
Mm-hmm.
Malcolm's asking if you can have a look, which is probably a good idea at this stage in the game to come down and make sure you know what you're doing. Looking around here, Glenn Taylor got the first set, but Pat Bird's winning 2-1 after 2 in the second set. Gary O'Connell and Carter Watson all tied up at 3 after 4. John Siteman, Gary Pickering are all tied up at 6 after 6. Terry O'Neill is trailing John McDonald 5-zip. Looks like Bob Van Wellingham's up 4-2 over Robbie Law. Everett Zwires up 3-1 over John Bjornsson. And Brandon Watson up 2-zip over Michael Leong.
We certainly can't complain about the weather. Conditions are absolutely ideal.
Yeah, today is another beautiful day.
And Malcolm has come up light.
It's definitely not what you want when you're down
Nope.
2 or 3.
He's holding his back again as if he's suffering some back pain.
I think he might be hurting a little bit.
Ernie's going to come at it from the other side too. Maybe he's trying to take the shot away.
I say he's already lying 2 or 3. Might be looking to throw in a guard here or make things just a little bit more difficult for Malcolm, and that's coming back to the center line, so I don't think that's going to do much to be in Malcolm's way.
Well,
All comes down to this.
Malcolm makes the shot, it's over. If he doesn't, there'll be a tiebreaker. Well, I've heard mostly glowing comments about this green, but I've heard nothing about the artificial, whether people are happy with it, unhappy with it. Certainly it seems to be a lot swingier than this one, so
There are some tricks to it, I've heard, and that's why they're only using 4 rinks on it, because the other ones are quite tricky. I haven't heard a whole lot aside from it's definitely a different pace, and when it gets windy, it's downright difficult to play on. So Malcolm just came up inside, so we're off to a tiebreak here.
it sure is, yeah. My goodness, did you see the way that finishes?
Yeah,
It barely missed the jack, and it's on the sideline. Well, they're tossing for advantage in the... Well, winning the toss for the tiebreaker can be a huge advantage because it's a very short game. And I noticed that game yesterday between Mary Wright and Jordan Koss. Jordan had all the momentum, and Mary won the toss and just went right after it, and Jordan was never in the tiebreaker.
Sometimes that's all you need is just to get the map back, and once you do, then you can get it to your length and just get right back into it. Ernie's coming up a little bit narrow here.
His weight was just about bang on. He's maybe a half a foot short.
Yeah, he probably needed another close to a foot anyway. Malcolm can just draw around that, but I think he's a little quick.
Yeah. Well, Pat Burns has jumped into the lead on rink 7. He lost the first set. He's ahead 4-1 after 3 ends in the second set. So that potentially, I guess, could be going to a tiebreaker. Isn't that strange? That bull didn't draw until very late. Oh, he was heavy.
I was going to say it could be weight sensitive there. It's not going to break until it starts to slow down. Good effort there from Ernie.
Oh, I think Malcolm got away. That got away from him.
That did. Well, it did come back almost to the center line, though. Almost.
But it looks like Ernie's probably lying 3 at the moment.
Ernie's trying to ask a pretty complicated question here. He wants to know if the jack goes to the tee, would he still be shot?
Right.
But the way he phrased it, it sort of confused the marker a little bit. He was asking would the black bulls be the green bulls in front. So when in doubt, come on down and take a look, which is what he did.
Viewers can hear by the noise that there's quite a strong wind blowing.
So based off of Ernie's last question, I'm not sure if he's looking to get a back pull here or if he's just trying to get into the head again. Because that looks a little narrow.
He certainly didn't make it.
Narrow and short.
Well, either Malcolm has to take some weight off or else he has to narrow his grass line to make contact with the head. It seems that Ernie's probably lying 4, which would be a
heck of a start to a tiebreaker set.
Oh, certainly would.
Could be in the ballpark with this. Didn't make any
I
contact.
don't think he affected the count at all. He was looking for the trail and missed it. As we've said, these fellas are both out of contention, so that really didn't have major consequences.
No, not really. But Ernie could count anything here at this end, and they can stop the tiebreak after 2 ends rather than needing all 3. So if it stays on, then I'll be back to the tee. And it will.
Interesting shot on 6.
Carter Watson made a trail to the ditch there just about, not two balls ago.
Yeah, and they're measuring for second shot. 2 points spread between them after 6 ends, so key measure.
Beautiful opening ball there from Ernie.
1 to Watson. 5-4 after 7. Well, Ernie's found his range, it looks like.
I was going to say, it looks like Ernie's finally found his mojo here.
Yeah.
Well, you did predict that this would probably go down to the wire, and here we are in a tie break, so...
And Malcolm's found the ditch.
Good chunk. I am quite pleased with the updates to the ditches here, that they've got sand there now, as 2 years ago it used to be small pebbles or whatnot, so the sand is quite nice, because when your bowl or your jack hits the ditch, it just stops right away, and it leaves an indentation too, so you can see where it is if it were to be disturbed. John was telling me that it's also the same sand they use when they top dress, so if there's ever any sort of holes or anything in the green, he'll just go to the ditch and grab a handful of sand and then go and fill it in.
Yep. Malcolm made an outstanding shot there, but happened to catch the outside of Ernie's bull and has left him lying 1, very close to the jack. And if we've said if Ernie should happen to score on this end, there's nothing that Malcolm can do.
Oh, Malcolm's close.
Oh, look at that.
Good
Makes a great shot and lies down 2. It's one thing to miss your shot, but it's very disheartening to make your shot and then have a bad result.
Malcolm was making a little joke there with Ernie, saying if I have to pick a hand to save my game, I guess I'm going to have to pick this one. Don't have much choice.
He should know his grass line, although it's slightly off center. He did touch the jack on his last bowl, so small adjustment his line. He should be able to get close to the jack and trail it to his earlier bowl.
Yeah, and if he does get a little wide, he can rest on Ernie as well, which is always nice, that you don't have to have exactly perfect weight. You just need to be close, and I think he's out there.
It's not coming back.
Nope,
it's not coming back.
So Ernie counts, and that'll be the game.
Yeah, and that's it. Lights up, game over.
Well, we'll take a small break, and then be back, I think 3:30 is when the next game is scheduled to start, so that's well over an hour away. Thanks for commentating with me again, Bob.
My pleasure.
We'll be back in over an hour.